When I think about the doctrine of discovery, the image that comes to mind, and it's not an image that I am at all happy about, but here it is: spiritual arrogance of the worst kind.
All Christian churches who relied upon the doctrine of discovery principle, I think, have to make it very clear that they're no longer relying upon that, or that they recognize the invalidity of that.
Christianity got entangled with this process of colonization. It was kind of fuel to the fire. And that's a devastating thing to come to grips with.
I think that our churches are one of the biggest institutional racism organizations in Canada. I mean, and if you look at the structure, where are the Indigenous people in that structure?
Well, I think if racism is grounded on an understanding that somehow we're going to be saved from ourselves as a people, then I think racism is rife.
I am very proud to be a Catholic Christian and also a Mohawk woman. We as church people need to be strong enough and not to say, oh no, it didn't happen, or, well, I'm sorry. Just listen, and you don't have to say anything.
I first heard my first truth-telling about experiences in residential schools in 2010, and that was a game changer. That the whole ground shifted under me. Because you can intellectualize this stuff to a certain degree, but then you hear stories from survivors, and it just, your head and your heart and your spirit connect differently, understand differently, learn differently. And it was sort of in that context that the doctrine of discovery, you can see the schools as a mechanism of this underlying concept. And so to see that written, to see that as an ideological concept that has shaped so much of not just church practice, but the history of European colonization in North America and in other places around the world, it's shocking.
It is very difficult to point and say, well, here it is. That's why the doctrine of discovery, I think, is a helpful way of describing it. It describes a systemic evil, a way in which a particularly dangerous and noxious idea becomes a part of the way people look at the world. It becomes a part of a worldview.
So as much as the churches are repudiating the doctrine of discovery, we have a larger challenge, which is a political challenge, which is to have it removed from our constitutions. And then the second part of that is, I think the theologies are still really strong within our thinking. And we haven't taken the time as church in our process of reconciliation to do that deep self-critique that is going to be necessary to change our worldview.
One of the great weaknesses of the TRC, in my mind, in Canada, is that as denominations, we're still separated. And every denomination has apologized for its mission history, I think. There have been many apologies, but we've never agreed that we would act collaboratively as people of faith.
How do we reflect on our baptismal vow to respect the dignity of every human being and to strive for justice and peace among all people? Here is an opportunity for us to talk about the history of our own church and our struggle to be faithful as a church to that kind of commitment associated with our baptism.
A Christian person as an individual has a twofold responsibility. Number one, they have to realize that they have been deeply influenced by these ideas, and they have to apply spiritual discipline and insight into resisting and countering these ideas in their own minds and hearts. And this is true for Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people both. This insight, I think, helps people to begin to move into advocacy and to start promoting ideas and policies in their communities and their organizations that will counter the impact of these ideas.